Hi, I'm Richard Ashworth. I'm here to talk to you about hexagram number 24, the tidal hexagram that rules every year between December the 7th and January the 7th by most calculations. Technically, it's called Fu, the return. It consists of Earth on top of thunder, that is the mother and the eldest son. The mother, of course, is receptive, yin earth, fertile, all those kinds of things. And the sun, thunder, is about stuff happening. So there's a very powerful relationship between these two. There's something rumbling, and you can see that in the image. Yang at the bottom and then 5 yins above. So the judgment is the time of darkness is past. The ideograph, the picture is of 3 footprints walking and retracing, 2 suns possibly leaving and returning. The image is anywhere of leaving and returning. And it marks the solar fortnight, December the 7th, of Great Snow Die Shoot. The ruler of the hexagram technically is the first line, which would, if you change that first line, it would take you back to Kun, but it would take you back to 6 yins, yin, 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 which is kind of indicative, because if we mitigate our behavior at the very first step, we're going to slide down a snake. In the stem and branch cycle, the 60-year cycle, Chinese 60-year or Ganzi cycle, this is equivalent to the wood rat, which is a pillar of beginnings, originality, those kinds of things. This is a very hopeful hexagram. It's returning, it's beginning again, but not quite yet. And though interestingly, the last line is one of the most baleful prognoses in the Book of Changes. Now, this hexagram falls as a tidal hexagram this time of year every year, but you might come across it some other way. So what I'm going to say about it and the lines, you may interpret as this time of year. You may interpret it as particularly this time of this year, because the Book of Changes can be extraordinarily precise, because the words can mean lots of different things. But you might throw it yourself, and you might want to draw personal meaning from it. But what I will say should, if I'm getting it right, apply on lots of levels: international, global, social, personal, relationship, your kids, your business, and so on and so forth. I may not be entirely aware of what level I'm speaking on, because I will just be reading out the metaphors, but pay attention to it. Try to hear on as many levels as is helpful to you. So this is thunder in the bowels of earth, deep movement not yet visible. Thunder always means something happening. For the return, I'm back and I'm proud, paired with its opposite bow splitting. So Fu is number 24. Its opposite, number 23, is bow splitting, which is a suicide mission. So the way that the Book of Changes is set up is the hexagrams are in pairs, very often opposites in meanings, and very often also opposites in structure. Thomas Cleary, in the Taoist Book of Changes, which is a really nice translation based on a 18th century commentary on the Book of Changes. He refers it to a dawn. So his interest in the process is that we have a dawn, which is number 21, which is about both refurbishing, making ready, getting things sorted out. It also has a meaning of very, very primitive, basic, atavistic practices, the image being mountain over fire. So you might see it as a progress, as I say, from Adorn 22 to splitting 23 to returning 24. So it's about a turnaround, a benign reversal, a rebirth, the circular motion of the Tao. If we can describe the Tao as having any kind of motion, the circle is kind of a magical shape. Out of the darkness into the light, everything turns around and returns. Light shines in the darkness. Perhaps relates to the instigation of the 7-day week. It actually refers in the text to the 7-day week. So the text of the hexagram is a sacrificial offering, exits or entrances, no urgency. Friends will come, no inauspicious omens. You remember the previous hexagram, Kun, the receptive for the previous month. Friends would come only in certain directions. Now friends will come without conditions. turn back and return to one's Tao. In 7 days comes the return. If you draw this yourself, you might treat that as literal, and it may well be literal, though it could be 7 months, 7 years, seven some other unit. It's advantageous to have a place to go, which is a comment that appears several times in the Book of Changes, which means this is a good starting point. It's a mark of being positive. And it could simply mean the change beyond the sixth line. The sixth line, as I say, is pretty baleful. Existence is born of non-existence, and motion is born from stillness. The ruling line is the first, which is yang, and therefore which is correct. And it's the one that's distinctive. If you have yang and then 5 yins, the one that sticks out, not necessarily the best, but the one that gives it its character is going to be that one, which is the case here. Physically, this may refer to the base of the spine. So if you're inquiring to get some kind of physical advice, it will be talking about the base of the spine, possibly the spine itself. Fu falls every year between December 7th and January 7th. So again, we can assign the lowest line to the 5 days, December 7th to the 12th, the next one to the 12th, from the 12th to the 17th, and so on. If you're feeling ingenious, you might do that, and sometimes that can be extraordinarily apposite. And of course, prior to Qianlong, the 18th century emperor, 1733 to 1793, the Chinese New Year started at the winter solstice, and there are, of course, 4 at least different calculations for the beginning of the Chinese year, one of them being in the currency of this hexagram. And the thing about this is that the return is coming, but it's not here yet. So you might think, with the total darkness of the solstice, that the relevant hexagram would be all yin, all dark, and nothing. But it's actually, that comes a little bit earlier, because this one presages the beginning of the light, which happens shortly after the solstice. Solstice meaning sun still, and the light and the beginning of slightly longer days and so on. It doesn't come immediately after the 21st. It comes perhaps 4 or 5 days later, and we can feel this if we're paying attention. So the hexagram text I read to you, and I pointed out the friends aren't limited to particular locations. Line by line, line 1, which says, not distant the return, do not cultivate regret, great good fortune. Something like it. It's easy to fall back, but you won't having got here. There are no big steps. Turning back from a poor choice, reconsidering, not to be repeated too often though. If you make a mistake, get it and move on. The nature of guilt, and learning from error. My note here says something about the Bee Gees. I think that's the song Guilty, the duet between Barbra Streisand and Barry Gibb, which might illustrate some of this. Guilt being something that is a complicated concept, because when we say I feel guilty, that doesn't necessarily mean you are guilty. It's a feeling, and it's a very ambiguous word, a word to be very careful with. So about the nature of guilt, of course, being paying the freight to allow yourself to do it again if you're not awake to it. Guilt is a passageway, a way through, a reset, if you like, but it can also be an excuse to carry on doing it because you've beaten yourself up enough. If that line were changed, it would turn to kun, earth over earth, because it goes back. It goes back to the previous hexagram, hexagram 2, the receptive. So it would speak of this being a tentative and fragile position, possible recidivism and impatience. This is all about timing. I mean, these are tidal hexagrams. They're all about timing. And this is, the light is coming, but it's not here yet. Line 2, rest and return, good fortune. Nice short one there. Say it's safe to rest. Going forward can be relied upon. There is no falling back. And it is the middle path. And the yang line in the first place is what is called correct, but not central. And the yin line is both central and correct. This one, line 2. Here we rely upon help, we rely upon perhaps a kind host. I have compared this to the story of Orpheus in Eurydice, where Orpheus is kind of classical Carlos Santana, and his lyre playing is so lyrical, so beautiful. He can charm the birds from the trees. He falls in love with the beautiful Eurydice, who dies, and he goes down to the underworld and bargains with the keepers of the underworld whether they will let Eurydice back. And he's allowed to have Eurydice back if he goes out playing his lyre, and she follows, and he doesn't look back. And it ends in tears. So this is about not looking back. Didn't work for Orpheus. Line 3, a warning. Don't keep looking back. It's the same theme here. Incessant returns, danger, no error. Don't keep looking back. No excuses for repeating your error. And the general Yan Hui is name-checked by Confucius as being known for not doing that. Forgiveness. The change is to Ming, which is Yi, earth over fire, hexagram 36. Modesty, brightness obscured. Earth over fire is a difficult hexagram. Not it's about endurance, if you like. Oh, and I didn't say line 2. If you change line 2, you get Lin, which is earth over lake, hexagram 19, the advancing, which the way these things work, we're going to be dealing with quite soon. Line 4, walk the center alone in returning. The central path, but it's at line 4, so it's telling you to get centered. It is not central. Opposing agreement in order to do the right thing. So this is about the courage to do the right thing regardless of the reward or approval. And it's about possibly being in bad company, where you might have to show leadership by making better choices. And it's assisted by line 1. The structure is, if you have a yang at line 1 and a yin at line 4, they are holding the thing together. They're supporting each other. The yin close to power, the yang far away from power, far away from change. But 4 is assisting the first line. The right path is not chosen according to gain or loss. Destiny emerges from character, is what the Book of Changes says to us. Destiny emerges from character. We know who's going to be lucky. It's not actually luck, it's something else, I suspect. Long story. Line 5, honesty returns, no regrets. So honesty returns to the prince. This is about self-appraisal, reformation. It's about whether this is the correct path. And it is giving the prince the opportunity to mend his ways, if you like, because the prince is a yin line here, so not that powerful. So that the way of ruling is yin. And as I say, if you were to apply this to the world this year, which you might well, you might think of this as being a yin way of ruling. You might notice that in 2020, in 2020, the countries that dealt best with the pandemic, the areas that dealt best with the pandemic, were run by women. New Zealand being the best example, perhaps. And this line 5 is talking about a yin way of doing things, which is a way of empowering rather than contesting, perhaps. And that changes to ton, water over thunder, hexagram 3, sprouting. Hexagram 3 is about looking after your resources, making sure that you check your tyres regularly on your bicycle, you make sure your oil is checked in your car before you take a long journey, those kinds of things. Don't put away tools and let them get rusty, those kinds of things. In my case, making sure my sunflower seeds germinate rather than rot. Line 6 is a confused return, and it's a very long line. A confused return, misfortune. There will be evil upon evil. Use and move the army. In the end, there will be a great defeat. Accordingly, for the prince and his state, misfortune. Even in 10 years, not able to proceed. So that's pretty much, you're paralyzed for 10 years is what it's suggesting. Now, none of this is to be taken as written in stone, nor necessarily literally, but what it's saying is pay attention to where you're going, because it may be that you're taking yourself deeper and deeper into error, and that your return will just bring the errors with you. Falsity and mismanagement, disaster. Of course, disaster means disaster. It is about being not at one with the stars. So this is one of the worst lines in the Yi. Abuse or distortion is implied. Dishonest use of language. Simony, which is the abuse of spiritual influence. Half-baked leadership. weak, losing your way. The earth is damaged. Natural disasters follow stubborn wrong-headedness. And in 2021, the year of the metal ox, natural disasters, the earth kind of fighting back is kind of inevitable. So things like sinkholes and avalanches and those kinds of things. I'm not in the business of predicting disasters, so I'm not going to go any further with that. If you change line 6, you get Yi, which is mountain over thunder. Number 27, the corners of the mouth, which means watch your tongue and also watch what you're putting into your mouth. So you are what you eat, but also those you speak to are what you say. So that's all of the lines. The next hexagram, Lin, Earth over Lake, hexagram 19, we will be dealing with next month, and I will aim to record a short video for that as well. Meanwhile, thank you, and I hope I will see many of you soon. Bye-bye.